Now, one of the things that I want to use Blue Soul Shoes for is to encourage and to help people to manage their own mental health. Now, as you know, I'm the biggest advocate of making sure that you get support when you need to go and speak to someone if you're experiencing some challenging symptoms. And of course, you should never shy away from that. But also, what I want to talk about today is about how we manage our own emotions at those challenging times, and how there's quite a lot of examples that I hear of when we don't help ourselves as much as we can. And one of those is the language that we use and the language that people around us use when it comes to mental health. Now, I'm, again, the biggest advocate of making sure if we're feeling really quite poorly that we use the right terms if it means we get the right help. But unfortunately, and sometimes, the pendulum has swung too far the other way, and we use what are quite negative emotive terms to explain how we're feeling. And I don't think that always helps. And so, of course, I always talk about when I was really poorly, that I experienced bone-crushing anxiety and deep, dark depression. But they're not experiences that I want to have regularly. And as I get better, or as people start to experience mild symptoms, I want you to be conscious of self-diagnosing or overusing some of these terms. And what do I mean? So we can all have a day, can't we, when we're feeling not great, when we're not feeling on top of our game. But does that mean we're depressed? Sometimes we don't want to go out in the evening. Someone's invited us out for a drink or to meet friends, and we're just tired and we don't want to go. Does that mean I'm experiencing anxiety? And sadly, I think it's a bit of a middle class trait, actually, because I've got younger children, as many of you know, and you hear quite a few parents talking about how their kids are now experiencing anxiety before they go to school. And when you scratch beneath the surface on some of those kids, they just don't want to go to school. I mean, my young lad most Sunday nights says, I don't want to go to school tomorrow, Dad. I just want to stay at home and keep playing. Of course he does. And I'm not going to say, oh, mate, no, he's got anxiety. He doesn't want to go to school. It's not anxiety. It's just normal feelings of it's much more fun at home. And again, that's not to denigrate if children are experiencing real anxiety, because some of them are for lots of different reasons. But we just need to be conscious of self-diagnosing, because again, you hear people say, I'm feeling really low, or I think I've got a touch of Asperger's. I've heard that one quite a bit. I think I've got a touch of autism. Or you hear people say, oh, I'm suffering from stress. Well, first of all, stress is a natural reaction to different situations. If stress gets too high, then yes, it can be quite damaging. But so many of those terms are what I call self-diagnosis. And self-diagnosis is pretty useless. A diagnosis is only helpful if it means you're going to get help for it. So you can say, oh, I've got anxiety today, or my little girl's got anxiety. Excuse me, every morning at the school gate, she don't want to go in, she's getting quite bad anxiety. I don't think that helps unless you're going to get some support to sort it, because it just catastrophises an issue. And we only tend to do it in mental health. If you think about other illnesses, I've made a list of stuff that I was thinking about. When I get a bad cold and I get a chest infection, I don't tell people I've got a pneumonia. Yeah, I've got quite a bad pneumonia, actually. Yeah, I'm on antibiotics for pneumonia. Pneumonia is the proper word for a chest infection. But we don't tend to do it for that, do we? I was doing some gardening the other day and a rose bush poked into my arm. And I woke up the next morning with a really bad hematoma. That's a bruise. I had a bruise. I didn't wake up and go, oh no, I've got a hematoma. Oh no, it's a bruise. Hematoma is the proper word for a bruise. Playing football with my lad over the park, and we fell over each other, and my knee went into his knee. Oh, and he said, Dad, I've got a really bad quadriceps contusion. And of course he didn't say that. He said, Dad, I've got a dead leg. And I gave it the magic, let's give it a rub. That'll get it better, mate. And so lots of other things, we don't use the proper terms, do we? We simplify them a bit. And I think we can do that with our mental health sometimes. And again, I'm not trying to suggest if you're suffering, you should downplay it or ignore it. Of course, I'm not doing that. There's a really good tip that I was taught about how to stop labelling your mental health in the moment. And one of the ways of doing that is on what's called a Likert scale, and that's a 1 to 10. Now, if 10 is the best you've ever felt ever, and if 0 is end of days, I can't go on anymore, and you're feeling low one day, or you're not feeling great, or you're just feeling heavy and can't seem to pull out of it today, there's a really good technique of saying to yourself, where am I on a 1 to 10 scale? Don't feel how I want to do. I'm struggling today. Where am I on that scale? Am I a 6? Am I a 7? And it's really interesting because in doing that exercise itself, it takes you out of your mind straight away. So you're thinking about something else, which is really good. It also helps to reduce the catastrophising. Because even when and I still have low days, we all do, but even when I was really poorly, when the therapist I was with would get me on that Likert scale, he'd say, okay, Ash, where are you? Where are you right now? And some days I'd be a 3 or a 4. 2? A 3 or a 4. But it was really useful because it would be like, okay, you're a 3, man. That's not a good, you don't want to be in a 3. Could be worse, couldn't it? How do we get you to 4? Let's not worry about 10. How do we get you to 4? And so whatever number you're at, and it's usually, when you're having a rough day, it's usually a 6 or a 7. What can you do to get to an 8? Or say to yourself, I'm a 6 today. That's okay. That's okay. It's not a 1. I'm a 6. And I can exist on a 6 for a few days. I can. Because like the weather, our mood passes, doesn't it? Emotions are variable. They move on. So, of course, if you're experiencing challenging mental health conditions, I'm not saying ignore them. Remember, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, but what I am is someone that's been through this. So don't ignore those symptoms if they're continuous, but also don't over-dramatise where you are. To say, I've got real bad anxiety, I'm feeling so depressed today. If you can just get out of that catastrophising and say, I'm not feeling great today. Where am I on that scale? Where am I on 1 to 10? It can help take your mind out of where you are. It can get you into a more stable period, and it can help you start to address what's really going on.